the role that was the hardest for Quentin to cast was the Uma role. He had been tricked by Uma's agent.
So one question I always start before I kick off our conversation is, who's just watched Pulp Fiction for the first time tonight? Okay. So you've all seen this before, obviously. Amazing film. It celebrated its 30th anniversary last year. Obviously, it's left a huge footprint in movie making and Hollywood and influenced so many people. Incredible soundtrack, incredible cast. Does it feel like 30 years?
People say you look just the same. I said, go look at a picture. No, I don't look the same. Time flies, right? Time really flies. It's so crazy but in some ways it's like yesterday. I remember like exactly where this Hawthorne shop was. I remember the lights that were pumping through it. Tim and Amanda, and I don't know if anyone noticed, but I'm the long hair hippie that goes in the end where he pushes down. And I'll tell you one quick story. Quentin, to mess with me, he said it's a wide shot, so he had Tim kicking me on the ground. He said, I need Tim to kick you. He was like a close-up on Tim. Yeah. So he was kicking me for a while just for fun.
Oh my God, we love that. So the film earned the 1994 Cannes Film Festival Palme d'Or. It was nominated for 7 Academy Awards and earned like the Oscar for Best Screenplay. Does it, talk about, your reaction to getting that script for the first time and what you thought? I mean, you obviously had been friends with Quentin beforehand. So when he gives you the script, what was your first thoughts?
Wow. So, first of all, in '92, when the LA fires are going on, a company called Metropolitan had bought Reservoir Dogs in France, and they got Reservoir Dogs into the Cannes Film Festival, official selection out of competition, midnight screening. So we actually went to the Cannes Film Festival with Reservoir Dogs in '92, and so I flew out of L.A. It was kind of crazy because the riots were going on. They were shooting at the planes. I was in the airport going to meet Quentin in Amsterdam, where he was writing, of all things, Pulp Fiction. And so we were hanging out there. And then we went down to Cannes for the screening, black tie screening. I never owned a tuxedo before. It was pretty cool. And but while we were in France, and they screened it on the Champs-Élysées, Reservoir Dogs, and we were walking down, and he had a little cassette player. What are those things called? Walkman. Sorry. Yeah. He said a Walkman. And he said, "Here, listen, this is I'm writing Pulp Fiction to." And I think it was his Dick Dale song. But anyway, he's playing all the surf music and 70s surf music. So, oh, wow, that's cool. So that's when he was writing. He was listening to this music while he was writing. And he would read me scenes. He rented a little tiny place in Amsterdam, and I slept on the couch for a couple days, and he was like reading me scenes. And it wasn't when I read the script, it wasn't the first time I had seen stuff. But eventually we got back, and yes, I read the script, and I don't know. I mean, it's a reason why he won the Academy Award for it. It's an extraordinary read. It's really it was extremely unusual at the time to have that kind of time, play with time like that, and so it was not usual. I think maybe the first time, I'm not sure it was the first time it was done, but certainly for Hollywood it was the first time it was done. And so, it was obviously pretty extraordinary.
Speaking of extraordinary, I mean, this cast, John Travolta, Uma Thurman, Harvey Keitel, Samuel L. Jackson, like, talk about the casting and how this came together, because I think at the time, like, John Travolta's career was, it wasn't as big as it was then. Yeah, Samuel L. Jackson, talk about.
It was an amazing process. Reservoir Dogs. Of course, nobody knew who we were, and we had a very hard time getting people to read scripts and so forth. Although we ended up obviously putting together a great cast. But on Pulp, people were coming in. The role that was the hardest for Quentin to cast was the Uma role. And he had been tricked by Uma's agent at the time. Uma's agent had called. So first of all, so many people came in, Italian actors and black actors and actors of just all different types and from different countries. And he was, it was the only character he really had no real concept. So he saw like lots of different Italian movie stars and just all different types of people. And then Uma's agent at the time called Quentin's manager. He said, I'm setting up that meeting for Uma and Quentin that they talked about. I was like, well, we never talked about that. But then he felt like, I can't not say no at this point. So we were in New York, and pretty much everyone I met with him with, but Uma he met by himself, and he spent a lot of time with her. And he came out, and we jumped in a cab. I met him, and it was so clear in his eyes that he had found the right person. So it was really it's interesting because he really didn't know, like a lot of the other people. He had lists and people he had in his brain. Harvey Keitel, he was like a big brother to us. We went through a lot together on Reservoir Dogs, and there's a word called a mensch. Harvey Keitel is the definition of a mensch. He's just a beautiful human. I learned a lot from making movies from Harvey, and so obviously Quentin had Harvey in mind. And some of the other roles, Sam Jackson came in and auditioned for us. And this is a known story now, so I'm not speaking out of school, but he had Sam in mind for this role, but another actor came in and blew us away. And then Sam came in and kind of just read it, and Quentin and I were like, shoot, So I had to call Sam's agent and say, I don't know what's going to happen, but there's someone else who came in who really crushed it. And she's like, no, that's not possible. I won't use all the words that came out. We can say in the movie, I won't say it now. But she said, he's got to come back in. And I said, we have too much respect for Sam. We can't have Sam come back in and audition again. He said, no, he's coming back in. So he comes in with a couple of the words, like he says on the screen. He said, you guys motherfuckers said you want me to read, so I read. You want me to audition? I'll kick your ass. And well, he did. He was great. He was amazing, obviously. So that's how Sam, and then it was Sam. And Bruce Willis, Harvey Keitel was living in Santa Monica at the time, and he was friendly with Bruce. And Bruce was like, I think maybe the biggest movie star at the time. He was getting paid $16 million for Die Hard 3, I think it was. And no one had ever been paid that much money before from Fox. I think it was Fox. So I think it was, by the way, it was Bruce. Wait, I'm mixing my stories up. Anyway, we went up to visit Bruce Willis, which was a big deal. Because we had, we made a movie, Reservoir Dogs, like, who are we? Here we are at Bruce Willis's house in Malibu, and Quentin and Bruce took a walk on the beach. Now, Bruce knew every piece of dialogue in Reservoir Dogs. He could recite the entire movie. And him and his buddies who were in the police, they all loved this movie. They could recite it. So by the time they came back from their walk on the beach, guess who's in the movie? And it was a great process. And it was cool because every time when we made the movie, there were like these chunks of time while we were shooting. And it was like, okay, here's the period of time when Harvey Keitel is in the movie. And we just shot that period. And there was a thing, he had another movie to make. And I had to move the entire schedule. I think we had to do like a 6-day week or something. We couldn't afford it. And it was the only way to get Harvey in. So I had to go to the crew. And I said, guys, we really want this guy Harvey Keitel to be in the movie, and they're like, oh, we love Harvey Keitel. So I need to ask everybody to move the schedule and to and they all, so everyone, the entire crew moved the schedule so Harvey could be in the movie. It was really great. Anyway, and it goes on.
I love that. We love a casting story. But Lawrence, were you surprised at this chemistry between Samuel and John and just how well they just vibe together? I mean, to your story, like I can't imagine anyone else.
Yeah, it was quite something. I have to tell you that every once in a while you get like a little butterfly in your stomach. I remember the first time John Travolta called me, and I said, "Hey, Lawrence, this is John." I'm like, "I'm talking to John Travolta." This is pretty cool. And he's asking about the movie, and he's asking me lots of questions. You know, John would ask me things like, the next day after shooting, he'd go, "How are the dailies?" I go, "Oh, they're great." And he goes, "Tell me why." You know, and he really wanted to be specific about, like, what about it did you like exactly? And so it was great. It was like really interesting because it taught me to be specific to real people who are like, you know, big stars, and it's just a really great learning experience. So anyway, John and Sam. So first of all, when I read the script, one of the things I said, you know what, man, you're screwing this up for all men, because there's this foot massage trick that we all have, and now all the women are going to know it. So we joked about it. But that scene and then walking down the hallway was, I think we did 18 takes of that scene. That building doesn't exist. That building came down in the earthquake, believe it or not. So the building doesn't exist anymore that we shot that in. But we spent the entire day doing one take. It's just those two guys. And clearly, they, like you say, they have such incredible chemistry. It's really nice.
I love that. And another story, the Big Mac scene.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned Paris or France. That was inspired by Quentin in France.
Yeah, Quentin
right?
was spending time in France, and he started eating Le Big Macs. So guess what? It turns out to be in the movie all of a sudden. He loved living in different places because they ended up, culturally ends up somehow infused in his place. But, you know, also in prep, if you think about it, because everyone has like a unique hairstyle. And Sam has this wig. I mean, Uma has this wig. Harvey Keitel, by the way, that's his natural hair. But we lost a half a day because we had made a wig for Harvey. And you could see the netting, and it just wasn't working. And we were down for an entire half a day trying to figure that out. So, but it was really an experience. And John Travolta has this wig on, or no, sorry, those are extensions. But it's just, you know, it was just a fun process watching everybody go through it in the wardrobe. But yes, France. It was Quentin loved living in France, and then he comes back, and Le Big Mac is in the movie.
I love that. So I'm curious because I love the soundtrack to this day. It is so incredible. Was there a song that he wanted for the soundtrack that you couldn't get, or did he pretty much get everything? Because at the time, like, this was, you know, his second movie.
You know, we had in Reservoir Dogs, we had a hard time getting Stuck in the Middle with You. And we're not making the movie unless we get that song. And it ended up being really expensive for us. It was like $50,000, some large amount of money for a movie. The whole movie cost $1 million. But I think in Pulp, all the songs are basically gettable songs.
To that, what was that like going from Reservoir Dogs for 1 million and this was 8 million, and you know that the budget was between 6 to 8. Like, talk about going with that, and obviously you had Bruce Willis in there too with his giant salary at the time.
Yeah. So Quentin, I mean, I know everyone knows this now. What has always been a super smart cinephile, and he said to me after the success of Reservoir Dogs, he said, the second movie is the most important movie for a director. Because if you make a good or a really good first movie and you make a really good second movie, then it's not a coincidence. And people are going to, then you can mess up the third movie, but people have seen you made 2 good movies in a row. They know that you're a good filmmaker. So for him, Pulp Fiction, whatever it was going to be, had that kind of onus of it had to be great. The second thing is that he wanted to keep the budget low because he wanted to have as much control as possible. He was always worried about people, taking over, telling what what to do. We had a friend on Reservoir Dogs who was fired off of his movie. So in Reservoir Dogs, there was this thing that if we could just make it through the movie without him being fired. Now, no one was threatening to fire him. It wasn't like that at all. But we had the guy who actually introduced Quentin and I had just been fired. And so on Reservoir Dogs, I was doing all these things to protect him, as an example, like on the schedule. If I saw, like we went through every scene we shot listed, and I went through every scene with him, how he's going to shoot everything. And so if there's some scenes that were like oneers, like one take, no editing, no cutting, and I said, I tell you what, we're going to put those scenes towards the back of the schedule so that by the time we get there, hopefully they're either not watching dailies, the studio's not watching dailies, or they'll think it's cool because we have all this other cool stuff, I came up with all these crazy things that I didn't really, turns out, need to do, but that was a thing. Wait, what was the question?
Oh my God, what was I asking?
I don't even remember.
I was so engrossed in. Yes, going.
Oh,
the
the budget.
Yes,
Yeah, sorry. Thank you.
The 1 million on Reservoir Dogs to 8 million.
So yes. So anyway, so he wanted to make sure a couple of things, that if we made it for the success of the movie would be successful relative to the budget. So if we make it a lower budget, it'd be easier to have success because we could, we wouldn't have to gross $100 million to break even. You want your investors to do well. Everyone's happy, and you want to be able to have more control. If it's a lower budget, you can just have more control. So he wanted to make the movie between 6 and 8. That was in his head, and I'm budgeting the movie, and we got to a certain point. I said, okay, I'm gonna just be able to barely make it under 8, but here's how I'm gonna do it. I had a certain amount of money left over. We hadn't put the money for the cast in yet, so I said, I'm gonna add up all the weeks of everyone working, and if someone works 1 week, they'll get paid. It was $20,000. If someone works 7 weeks, they'll get paid $140,000. It was a multiple. So John worked 7 weeks, so John Travolta made $140,000. Now he likes to joke that he had to pay to be on the movie because his plane that he flies, the gas was more than the $140,000, or the hotel he was staying in at the top of the Four Seasons was more than the, And Bruce Willis got paid $20,000. But it felt, somehow it felt fair. I mean, I learned this one thing from Harvey Keitel as we were negotiating. He said, if you're making these movies where people are not getting paid a lot, everyone needs to feel like they're being treated fairly. So we as actors need to feel that. So I took that to heart.
I love that. So at the beginning, I asked everybody here who's seen it. Usually, with the previous films, like people are experiencing them for the first time. Pulp Fiction has been out for over 30 years. It is a loved film. People do repeat viewings. I've seen it more than 5 times, maybe, and I have that soundtrack on.
Only 5?
More than 5. I'm just like, why do you think this film has really resonated with audiences and they love it?
That's a good question. I was sitting in the back watching the last half of it, and it sounds funny to say, it really holds up. It really, something about the characters. Just such great characters. The dialogue is so great. The way it's filmed. We filmed with these big lights. We filmed with not that this is the reason why I stick, but we filmed on film stock and 50 ASA film, which is you need a massive amount of light to be able to expose that film, and you get very little grain. So the same person who did Reservoir Dogs did Pulp Fiction, cinematographer Andre Sequoia, and anyway, I don't know. There's something something about the characters. They're so iconic looking. I don't know. There's such a there's a uniqueness about it. There's a funness about it. But I don't know.
But also to that, it made people fall in love with John Travolta again. Like obviously Bruce Willis was huge as it was, Harvey. But then, there was a new love for like Uma. There was love for, Samuel. Like talk about that effect of Pulp Fiction.
Talk about
like just how Hollywood responded to the casting.
I could tell you one fun story. So in Cannes that year, first of all, it was a great year for me because I also had another movie called Fresh. I don't know if anyone's seen the movie Fresh, and Fresh was in the director's fortnight, but a much smaller movie, and and Sam Jackson's in Fresh also. So when Fresh was in Cannes, it was the first half of the festival. I was in this little tiny hotel around the end of the Croisette, and then it was like the Wild Bunch hit the Croisette, and all of a sudden now I'm in the Carlton Hotel, and it was a really nice hotel. Of course, Bruce Willis is in the Hotel du Cap, and a much nicer spot, as he should. And by the way, that was the Hotel du Cap. So they don't play music, and it's a quiet, beautiful honeymoon hotel. And when we won the Palme d'Or that night, Bruce Willis, we went out to the Hotel du Cap eventually, and he used to be like a DJ, right? Or I don't know, I think he was. Anyway, he loved music. He brought down his boombox, and he started like playing music, and we were dancing in the middle of the Hotel du Cap. They lowered the lights. It was a dance party, which had never happened before and after. But it was like the Cannes lit up, just all those people on the Croisette, and it was the Cannes. It was a buzz. It buzzed.
Yeah. What was it like, having worked with Quentin and just seeing how he grew as a filmmaker from Reservoir Dogs to
Pulp Fiction?
Pulp. Yeah.
Oh, it's interesting. He's always, from the time I met him, he's always had this incredible, first of all, encyclopedia knowledge of movies, of shots, of actors. Actors would come into the auditions, and he'd go, "Oh, I remember this movie you were in," and they would not remember the movie they were in. Like literally, I'm not making that up. Some small part in the movie this person did like 15, 20, 30 years or whatever. They're like, "Huh, what movie?" And that's Quentin. What was interesting on Reservoir Dogs is we're pretty much the least experienced person on the set, both of us. I actually had produced a movie already, a little small horror movie that Sam Raimi was in called Intruder. That's the director who introduced Quentin and I. So I had actually made a movie, but Quentin had never directed a film. He had this little movie he was making over the years, but he never really made a movie. So after Reservoir Dogs, he made a movie. So he knew a lot more. Obviously, he's a professional filmmaker now, or at least he made one movie. So you just had the knowledge, knowledge of how movies work, the rhythms, and so forth. But basically the same person, just with more knowledge.
All right, before we wrap, I want you to tell us one story about Pulp Fiction that you've never told anybody before.
That's not possible.
I think you've told so many stories.
If there's a story I haven't told anyone, there's a reason.
Or a favorite anecdote from the film.
I'll tell you, there's so many, right? When we were screening the movie at the premiere at the New York Film Festival, it was at Avery Fisher Hall in Lincoln Center. It's a massive place if anyone's ever been there. The whole cast was there, which was pretty wild. Tom Cruise was there. He was friends with, I don't know, maybe Bruce or somebody, but he was there. And we're so it's a big ballet hall, right? So there's the balconies go around. So we're on the side, on the second level, and at the point at which Uma is stabbed with the needle, you hear a grumbling down below, and then someone yells, and you can see. I look down, and someone yells, "Is there a doctor in the house?" So now this guy had fainted at that spot, literally, and well, it's the Upper West Side. Everyone's a doctor, so everybody runs down, and then I get out of my seat. I run around. I'm the producer. And I run around. I run down, and we had already met the manager of the Avery Fisher Hall. So he runs up to me. What do I do? I said, "Stop the movie. Turn the lights on." And so, like the middle of our premiere of our screenings, like holy shit. So the lights are on. This place is packed. Harvey Weinstein comes down, and so the guy revives. He wakes up, and he had a sugar rush of some sort, and he fainted at the moment of this thing. So Harvey and I walk him out. Someone gets him some Coca-Cola or something or some orange juice, and then he's fine. So Harvey says, "Look, come to my next premiere." He gives him some tickets here's my number, and we'll give you some tickets to our next premiere. And then the movie starts up. They have to, by the way, it's film. You have to rewind it, right? And so they start the movie up right where it was, and it goes on. Meantime, Harvey and Bob and me are up kind of in the lobby, and they're freaking out because this is still, you have to remember, there's no internet. So at some point in a little bit, the papers come out with the reviews, right? You're waiting for the papers to come out. And they were worried that all people can hear is someone fainted, the movie's too violent, no one's going to watch the movie, right? And that didn't happen. No one heard about it, and it was what it was. And it did $100 million here. It did $210 million worldwide. Crazy. So anyway, that's a fun story.
Love that. Love that. Somebody fainted during this film. Lawrence, thank you so much for that insight into
My
Pulp
pleasure.
Fiction. Congratulations. And thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight.
Thank you, Jazz.
to Soho House, the Variety team, and, of course, to Barco. And thank you, Lawrence.